So
by your holy cross you have redeemed the world. I was a slave in Pilate's household in Jerusalem. There were lots of people there, jostling and pushing, and over to one side were the Jewish priests, keeping themselves separate. Pilate wanted some water, and I was sent for it. I brought in a bowl and a towel, and he dipped his hands in the bowl and dried them on the towel. That's what I remember. Then Pilate said, "Take him away and crucify him." Only then did I see him, standing, shackled in front of Pilate. I wondered what he had done. I was a soldier in Pilate's guard on duty that day. Once Pilate had passed the sentence of death, it was our job to carry it out. So we marched him out from Pilate round to our courtyard. That's where we had our bit of fun. We dressed him up and mocked him and spat at him. And some of my mates roughed him up a bit. Then we got out a cross for him. He knew that he had to carry it, although he didn't seem strong enough to carry that weight. But with our spears and swords, he had no choice.
Jesus, you carried the cross through the rough streets of Jerusalem. Be with those who are lonely
gospel redeemed the world. I was standing outside the governor's palace. It was just before Passover, and a crowd had gathered to see if the governor would release any prisoners. We'd cheered the news that Barabbas was to be freed. But then the soldiers came out with some other men, taking them to be executed. They were each carrying their crosses. But this one was already weak. The weight of what he was carrying seemed crushing. He lurched towards us, and he stumbled right in front of me. The soldiers were straight in with their spears. They picked up the cross, dragged him to his feet, and carried on.
Oh, my son, my dear son, it was agony to see you suffering like this. How many mothers have seen their children suffer? I knew what it was like. We, my friends and I, had waited outside the governor's palace, waiting for you to be freed. And then the soldiers forced you out carrying a cross. Before they could stop us, we ran past them and hugged you. Why was this happening to you? Why? Surely you could have said something, done something, and it would have stopped, even now. But as you looked at me, I knew this would not happen. I felt as if a sword had pierced my heart.
Son of Mary, be honor and glory with the Father and the Holy Spirit, now and forever. I was there to see the Passover. It was a big thing in those days, and I'd brought my two boys, Alexander and Rufus. We'd got caught up in this crowd, and I could see that they were taking some prisoners out to be executed. The soldiers saw me, and the officer came over, and with his sword he forced me behind one of the prisoners and to take half the weight of the cross. I couldn't believe how heavy it was. It seemed like I was carrying half the world. At the time, I had no idea who he was.
Everyone forgets my name now, but I was there, and I remember seeing him carrying his cross, his face so covered in sweat and in blood from the soldiers' blows. He stumbled towards me, and almost by instinct, I pulled out a small cloth and wiped his face. There was so much sweat and blood that when you looked at the cloth, you could see his face. I still have that cloth, a true image of him.
We were walking into the city as the soldiers cleared the way out, so we stood to one side to watch. A man, helped by another man, was carrying his cross. Even with help, he was struggling, and he stumbled and fell beneath the weight. Some of the crowd were yelling abuse at him, and others were crying. Despite everything, there was something about him that stood out. I remember wondering who he was.
My friends and I had been waiting for him to come to Jerusalem. We'd heard about the man from Galilee. We'd even seen him there and heard him speak. And now here he was. Surely it didn't have to come to this. And as we cried, he must have heard us and drew on his reserves. Don't cry for me, he said. Cry for yourselves and your children. How could he have known what would happen to us all these years later? Our beautiful city destroyed and our temple razed to the ground. Now there are no more sacrifices here. My spirit from above, make my heart with thine accord. Because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world.
After he'd fallen before, we'd run along the road, pushing through the crowd, through the city gate to the hill outside the walls. And just as we got there, he fell again, a third time. How much longer can this go on? And this time the soldiers don't even try to force him to his feet. They're already at the place.
I was a soldier in the guard. We were just doing our job, something we'd done dozens, if not hundreds of times before. Crucifixion was our business. First thing was to strip the prisoner. No dignity was left to a man being executed, not even a cover for his nakedness. His tunic was woven all in one piece, I remember that, and we threw dice to see who would have it.
Jesus, the word cross, you have redeemed the world. The next thing was to nail him to the cross. Sometimes prisoners were tied up. Other times we used nails. This time it was nails. It always took a whole squad of us to do this. Some to hold the cross secure, some to hold him and restrain him, and someone to hold the nail and someone to hold the hammer. You had to put a nail through each wrist, so he would be held up by the nail between the two forearm bones. Then a single nail through both ankles. To breathe, a man would have to push himself up on these nails. Every breath an agony.
I was the Centurion. My job was to supervise the whole execution and see it through until the 3 men were dead and keep the crowds under control too. As the occupying power in a troubled territory, we were used to executing rebels. But I remember this one. Of course, it was at Passover, and the crowds were large and worrying. The governor had us put a sign over him that he was King of the Jews, and this is how any king of the Jews would end up. And it went so dark that day, you'd think it was the middle of the night. But the way he died was different too. He didn't curse. He didn't incite his friends to rebellion. He seemed to be saying his prayers and talking to his mother and a few friends. Through all the pain, through all the indignity and humiliation, he seemed to know what he was doing. Everything about him proclaimed his innocence. Because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world.
I'm Nicodemus. I had met him a few times and spoken to him. Now he was dead. We thought it was all over. All we could do now for him was to get him down from that cross and give him some dignity in death. My friend Joseph and I went to his mother to offer our help. I think Joseph went to see the governor and got his permission. So we were able to get him down and cover him up. It was a terrible task, but it was the last thing we could do for him. It was awful to see his mother holding his limp body and kissing his bloodied face. And we just kept asking ourselves, why? Why did this happen?
I'm Joseph of Arimathea. Like Nicodemus, I was a member of the Jewish council. I'd only recently had a new tomb cut from the rock near to the place. It was to be for me and my family, but it was beginning to get dark, and we had to bury his body before sunset. So I suggested laying him out there, and then we could come back on Sunday morning to tidy things up and anoint his body and say our prayers. That's what we did, and the governor ordered the tomb to be sealed and guarded. Of course, on Sunday morning, it was all very different.